Welcome to Keylink. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Joe.
And we're here with Paul A. Young, who's going to show us some tabletop tempering.
Hiya, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. And you?
I'm good, thanks. Thank you for having me. Yeah, we're looking at Valrhona and tempering, shelling, moulding, and using and tasting, this time, 64% Madagascan, which is called Majari.
Lovely.
Super fruity, acidic, single origin chocolate, and we're going to tabletop temper. So you very kindly got my chocolate on for me, which is in a bain-marie. We set it at 50 to 55 degrees centigrade, and Valrhona recommend melting for a long time. And this quite often can scare people. You can't do it at home for 12 hours because you can't leave your hob on that long, which is why the mini melting pots are great, because you set the temperature, they're very safe. But the result is a very fully melted chocolate and a really great finish, a consistent finish when you've tempered it. Super shiny, super crisp, really beautiful feel on the mouth. And that consistency is obviously what you want. You want to know that it will work. So read the bag, read it like a book. The bag of chocolate that comes in has all the information you need in every language now, and it has the tempering curve, which is what you melt the couverture to, what you cool it down to, which is where the crystallization happens, and then when you warm it again for the using temperature. That's a temperature where the temper is still stable, but it's fluid enough so you can pour it, shell, mould, pipe, roll, coat with it. So
and this chocolate, it's good for all of those applications.
Well, Valrhona do have, in all of their literature, what they've suggested is it's useful for. So I've used Majari for making bars, making Easter eggs, making ganache, and shelling. So, but you can, if you're a pastry chef or a baker, use it for making mousse, glaçage, all those other applications. And I think you find the way to use it for you. The thing with Valrhona and Majari, it's a very famous Valrhona chocolate in the industry because it is super vibrant, red fruits, zingy, mouth-watering. Even when you open the bag, it can be a bit acidic. And there isn't another chocolate they manufacture like that. So this is the one to go for. So if you're making a specific thing with red berries, summer berries, as a pastry chef or a chocolatier, go for this.
So it pairs really well.
It pairs really well. So preparation is, we've got a marble slab. It could be granite.
Yeah.
It could even be a worktop if you're at home where you have that composite. It's called Korean. There are different names for it. It's like composite worktops where it's a mix of stone and resin. They work really well. And this size is portable. It's probably about 60 centimetres by 40. And you can do a good kilo of chocolate, kilo and a half of chocolate on there. Equipment-wise, it's very basic. A palette knife, which most of us have.
Yep.
This is a mould scraper, so specific for chocolate. It's for scraping the mould, and I use it for tempering as well. Or you have what I call the wallpaper scraper, the triangle scraper. I'm not a fan of that to temper with, but I use it to clean my bench down with. I find it a bit rigid, weirdly, and I find this one a bit easier to handle. And everybody has their own, like a knife. My mum has the knife she uses for every single thing, but I have a set of knives that I would choose my knife for the job. And I can't teach you how to hold these. Everyone has their own way and feel. So I'm a very intuitive chocolatier. I like to look at the chocolate, view the chocolate, live with it for a while, understand its viscosity, how it cools, how it melts, and look at it a lot. And that's something I adopted 20 odd years ago when I first started working with chocolate predominantly. I wanted to know it rather than take all the information from the bag and not believe it, because it's true, but I wanted to understand it myself the way I understand working with my hands, if that makes sense. Whereas if you were using tempering machine, absolutely fine. You put the chocolate in, you set it, and then you're reliant on the machine to do its job, but still check it's tempered. But for me, I like doing it this way, by hand. So chocolate out, so you can see it's beautifully melted, and look at it, feel it, lift it up, see how it flows, get to know it, especially if it's the first time you've used it. And we do know that Valrhona is a premium couverture. The price of it may be a little bit more expensive than others, but I've been using it for over 25 years now as a pastry chef and a chocolatier, and it is consistent in flavour, taste, snap, finish. I think it's worth investing in. And by that, I mean, when I'm saying investing, I mean, add it into what you do already. You don't have to move everything over to one type of couverture. as I was telling you earlier, I use lots of different varieties. I always have, from lots of different producers.
Yeah.
Because nobody else makes Majari or Madagascan like that. So what I'm doing now is giving you the confidence, giving everyone the confidence to give it a go. So here we go. Marble slab, palette knife. I'm going to tip out just over 2/3 of whatever the amount of chocolate is in here.
Right.
If you want to be really specific, if you say, I need to make 50 bars of chocolate and they're 50 grams each, you could weigh your couverture to make 50 bars with a little bit extra because you lose a bit on the bench and on the equipment. Or if you're practicing for the first time, melt what you feel is comfortable for you. Don't push yourself too much. Okay. But it isn't any harder to temper than any other chocolate. It just will be different because you haven't seen it before and used it before. And Valrhona chocolate is beautifully fluid, look. It flows very well. You can get really beautiful thin shells with it. And very thin bark. I love bark, where you spread it on the paper, put nuts and fruits in and snap it.
Yeah, yeah.
This will get that lovely, flat, smooth finish.
Yeah,
here we go.
big fans of that here.
Yeah.
Oh, me too. It's the easiest way to enjoy chocolate.
It's lovely.
Toasted nuts, fruit and nut. I'm a fruit and nut fan.
It's
I love toasted nuts. So I've left some chocolate in my vat.
Yeah.
That's going back onto my little bain-marie to stay warm. We need that later. So palette knife and scraper. So the process is to spread, which increases the surface area, which cools the chocolate, and then mix it back in to build the hardening crystals, those tempering crystals that make the chocolate really snap. And most importantly, shrink when it cools. It's not about speed. I've done it myself on social media and filming where you go really fast and it's a bit showy. That's fine. But this is about getting the chocolate right. And you don't need to work quickly. It's just about being fluid.
Okay. So you don't need to work quickly, just kind of keep it moving.
Keep it moving. So spread it out, then move it back in. And make sure you scrape up all the chocolate from the sides. Look, back in. And at the minute, it's still very, very fluid. And at about 28 degrees, this is going to start to crystallise. And you'll see it change on the slab. It becomes a little bit thicker and it kind of wrinkles slightly on the surface. Now, that's probably new to a lot of people. Like I said, I'm very visual and I like looking at the chocolate. You can use your digital thermometer. Sometimes I've found that when I do that, I've taken it a bit far, it's cooled down a bit quick and waiting for the thermometer, it's still cooling all the time. It can go a bit lumpy. So this is how have done it for many years. And that's because I'd spend time to get to know the chocolate. And
can you feel it, that it's starting to crystallise as well?
You can, yes. It has a slight heavier feel to it. It starts to hold its shape a little bit. So you can see I'm working very gently. You can speed up if you want. Look, I mean, it doesn't have any benefit. And in some ways, you can end up beating air into it. So I'm just keeping it moving, look. And I'm going to bring it off the slab now. So when I push it, there's a little bit of wrinkling around the top, around the corners here. So is that what you're
looking for?
That's what I'm looking for, where it's at 28 degrees and those crystals will start building up. So the beauty of a marble slab, that's you can move, you can pull it forward, grab your vat. I'm going to scrape the chocolate from the slab, which is the cool chocolate, into our warm chocolate, which is the 55 degree chocolate. And this will stop this setting.
Okay.
So we scrape that in. It may go on the floor. You have to be careful. Scrape it all in, but I'm not going to scrape in anything set off the bench on here. We don't want any lumps in here. But I will just give that a little tidy, work as cleanly as you can, and that's where your other scraper comes in, look. We need to keep the tools as clean as possible. Ooh.
And this chocolate can still be used at a later date? We
will save it and we'll use it for tempering, for ganache. Again, it's not wasted. There's no waste when it comes to tempering or working with your chocolate, unless you burn it or unless you do something wrong with it, you know. So now I mix the two together. I'm not beating it. I don't want to incorporate air. I'm just stirring, very smooth stir.
And so that cold chocolate now has brought that down to the correct temperature.
So we should have a chocolate at now 31 degrees, which is the using temperature. Now, if it's a bit warm, still, when we'll check the chocolate, you tip a little bit more out and you rebuild some more tempering crystals into the chocolate. It isn't wrong if you don't get it bang on first time. There's this kind of pressure, got to be tempered first time. And in some ways it's good if it's not.
Yeah.
because you can do it again and I can show you.
Yeah, a bit of trial and error.
Yeah, so mix that in. When it's fully mixed, and really mix it well, make sure that cooled chocolate and the warm chocolate is very, very evenly mixed. Take your palette knife, dip it in. I don't tap it off, I just leave kind of a pillow of chocolate and place it over the edge of the slab. And within a couple of minutes, if it's tempered, it will set with a beautiful satin sheen. No swirlingness, no patchiness. It should be even. And if it's not, we'll tip out a little bit more, build some more crystals up and pop it back in.
So what kind of time frame would you leave this for?
It should set within a couple of minutes.
Within a couple of minutes.
Within your room temperature. Unless it's very, very warm. So if you're at home, if you're a home chocolatier, your kitchen may be a bit warmer, you might find it takes a little bit longer.
Right.
And if you're in our scenario, which we've got air conditioning today, it could set a little bit quicker. But again, you've got to watch it.
And you don't need to worry about the chocolate on the side?
No.
Nope.
This will be okay for quite about 20 minutes or so.
Okay.
As a small amount. If you're using a large amount, you can actually buy a holding tank where you set the temperature, pre-warm it, you temper your large amount of chocolate, say you're doing a 5 kilo batch on a bigger slab, then you can put that tempered chocolate into the holding tank to hold it. I generally always temper the amount of chocolate I need and use it. So if I know I'm going to need 5 kilos to make that amount of product, I use it immediately, and I use a heat gun or a hairdryer to gently warm over the surface to keep it at the temperature. And you can use your digital thermometer then to check that it's
within the temperature range.
Exactly. Or if you're not sure, every time you've warmed it, get your palette knife out and just double check. There's nothing wrong with checking. You don't want to line all of your moulds with chocolate that isn't tempered and you refrigerate them to cool them down and they don't release and then you've got to wash them all out and you've wasted all the chocolate. So I do everything possible, everything at all possible I can to check it first.
So it's better to slow down, take your time, and make sure that each time you are in temper, because otherwise there's going to be a lot of washing to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, it saves you a lot of trouble.
It does. Now I can see there's no setting happening at all, so it's still a bit warm.
No, it's still very glossy, isn't it?
It's very glassy looking, yeah, and it's very wet looking, even though we know there's no moisture in it. So I know that either the chocolate I took off was a little bit warm, or I left a little bit too much in here.
Right.
So what you do, I'm going to take about a little bit more, but not as much.
So how much would you say? About a third?
About a third this time rather than the 2/3. Okay. And repeat the process. But remember that this chocolate will be a little bit cooler because you've already cooled it down.
Okay, so you wouldn't move it around for so long.
It might not take as long. I'm just going to cool this down. It's building up those crystals, those tempering crystals. Spread it out.
So again, you're just looking for that film once you're moving it about before you place it back into your bowl.
Absolutely, yeah. So move it round, gentle movements, nothing too vigorous. And just constantly look at the chocolate, feel the chocolate. You'll get to know it. You'll get to know each one very carefully. And you'll know how it feels. You'll know how it looks. You'll know when it's ready. With practice, but like anything, tempering doesn't happen immediately. You have to learn how to do it, particularly if you've been seeding your chocolate for a long time, or you've been reliant on a tempering machine, and you want to sometimes be able to temper, maybe not all the time, but sometimes, then this is how to know it's ready. Now I know that's ready now. It's changed ever so slightly. It started to thicken slightly. I'm going to do the same thing again, scrape that into my vat. A quick scrape to get the chocolate off the here before it sets on completely. Try and work as cleanly as you can. But we all know it's really impossible, isn't it? Because it's chocolate. It's virtually as possible as the levels down there, because it's just going to go everywhere.
You can't see the chocolate on the floor here.
No.
Yeah, there is a lot of chocolate down there.
There is, between my feet, there is a little few drips. It's going to happen. And if you're at home, put some newspaper on the floor or something,
That's a good tip.
That is very good.
Anything, and it makes it easy to clean, So mix that again. You can't overmix. I'm not beating it. It's not a whisk. It's just a normal rubber spatula, silicone spatula. Stir it round.
So what would you say the benefits are from this method of tempering over microwave, seeding?
I find if you're using a large amount of chocolate, this is way more consistent.
Right.
I find it more consistent generally once you get used to doing it. I'm not reliant on my microwave being maybe patchy heat. Sometimes it's hotter in certain places than others, or it's a pulsating heat. Every microwave is different, whereas on a slab, you're doing the same process all of the time. I find it more controllable.
Right.
But I find it more enjoyable because I'm focusing on it. But you have to do what you feel comfortable with. And I just find I've always only ever tabletop tempered Valrhona chocolate, and it's been really consistent. And it's because it's super fluid and very, very reliable.
Okay.
You know, it's weird to say that a chocolate is reliable, but it always delivers a really great finish.
I guess, as you say, if you have more control over the process of it.
Yeah, you do.
More reliable.
That control's very important. So we'll do the same thing again. We'll dip the palette knife in, pop it on, and we'll wait to see if it sets.
Lovely. So just the same as before.
Same as before. And again, all these little bits of chocolate, look, and anything that I scrape off here, all this will scrape off. Save it. Put it in a container. It's called rework.
Right.
So it's been worked once. I'll put it in a container, label it with 64% Valrhona, Majari or Madagascar, depending on what you want to remember it by. Give it a batch number if you're being specifically, detailed, and call it rework, or make ganache with it. But don't put it back into a bag. I would never put it back into a bag of fresh couverture.
Oh, okay. Keep it separate.
For me, and this is a me thing. I'm mixing two things together and I've worked it already, but that will go into my next batch of whatever I'm doing. So no waste at all.
It's a very low wastage, which is obviously a great thing.
It is absolutely. All chocolate is expensive.
Yeah.
It's a valuable thing, and if you've got a business, and every 20 grams here and there, there's probably 20 grams there. But if you add that up over weeks, months, years, it's a lot of chocolate.
Yeah.
You can retemper about 4 times. I think that's the maximum. I'm not saying that's what Valrhona's saying. That's what I've experienced. So, say I didn't use all of this chocolate, I could melt it down again and temper it. But after 4 times, you lose some quality, you lose some texture, you lose the shine. It gets harder to manage. You can even start cooking the sugars within the chocolate, or milk and sugar in milk chocolate.
So it starts to change the flavour.
Absolutely, and it will change. You can smell it and you can taste it. And at that point, you start losing the character of the chocolate itself. So if you do have some left over, I tend to then go, right, what am I baking? I can bake with it, or I can, because you don't notice it as much. But just control it carefully. That's one of the things when you're spending a lot of money on fine quality chocolate. Be a bit more careful. Look at how much you need and how much you're going to use. Will I end up using all of that chocolate in my batch?
So try and limit your wastage.
Yes, absolutely. And if I can, for example, if you're a chocolatier, you're going to make some truffles or ganaches. But I know I'm going to make some single origin, 64% Madagascar bars tomorrow. That will go into the bar and it'll get used up. So you just have to be a little bit savvy to make sure that you're using everything up. There shouldn't be any waste. Unless, of course, we all have a mistake sometimes and either burn something or make something wrong. Then you just eat it personally yourself, as long as it doesn't taste burnt.
A necessary sacrifice of being a chocolatier.
Absolutely. But also, something I haven't said, which I always do, every single bag of Valrhona I open, I taste before I make. Okay. No, I'm not checking to see if it's wrong. I'm checking because it's a natural product. And especially with single origins, between batches, between harvests, between different times of year, the flavour can change ever so slightly. And it's just good to learn it and know it. And it's a way to get to know your chocolate, because occasionally we all forget to label something.
Yeah.
And if you got lots of chocolate in containers that you haven't used and you forget to label it, you need to taste it and go, that is that chocolate. Taste a lot every time.
That's another very good tip.
We have tempered our chocolate, hooray.
Amazing.
So this time it has set beautifully, evenly, no patchiness, no swirliness, no graininess. There's the odd air bubble, of course. But that's what it should look like, a really beautiful, even satin sheen. I'm going to take it right up close, this camera, look, because that's how to check. I'm giving you some work here, aren't I? So that lovely satin sheen. It's never going to be as shiny as if it's come off a polycarbonate mould, but it shouldn't have any swirliness, unevenness or graininess. So we now know that vat of chocolate we can make our shells to then fill with our water ganache and cap off, and we can use it.
Perfect.
Amazing.
Lovely.
Great.
Thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you.